Good evening, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Mary Ann Reed, and I'm the Dean of the College of Media at West Virginia University, and I am so glad to be here tonight. Welcome to our annual Integrate Conference, and a special welcome to our current IMC, DMC, and DMC students, our faculty, and alumni, and some other professionals who are here this weekend to learn and to make some important connections. And also welcome to some of our special guests. I have several of my dean colleagues who are here tonight. Thank you very much for coming. We have a president, one of our presidents, Jennifer Orlikoff. And of course, many of you met our other president, Gordon Gee, who is one of a kind, and was sorry that he couldn't stay for the whole event. It is absolutely wonderful to have all of you here in Morgantown so that you can see and experience in person our beautiful WVU campus. You know, I'm very proud of our online program. I know I'm biased, but it is truly, I believe, the best online IMC program in the country, the best IMC program in the country, period. But I also think there is real power to coming to campus, and I recommend that anyone who's in the program or affiliated with the program visit campus at least once. And I think there's value in that because, first of all, you see that you are part of a much bigger idea. You know, you're beyond your classes, beyond your instructors, beyond the IMC program. You're part of a university community that has history, that has tradition, and that is a really warm and welcoming place. And I hope you feel that, because I truly think you have to be here to experience that. You know, we are WVU and the College of Media. We are a place that is driven by passion, purpose, and heart. And I think of what Cynthia Greenglass said last night about this is a family. And so you're all part of that family, and I hope you feel that, and coming here gives you that I think that gives you that experience. It also, by coming here, I hope you realize how much we appreciate you. And we're able to say that to you in person and say thank you for choosing this program as a student, thank you for teaching in our program. We have so many dedicated faculty, because each of you contributes to the program in a meaningful way, and makes it the great program that it is. So again, I'm so glad you are here. I hope you've had an amazing conference, and we're going to hear an amazing speaker in just a moment. Tonight, though, I want to thank all of you, but I would like to acknowledge some people who are integral to the success of the program, and who also have done a really fabulous job of putting this conference together. So I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, Chad Mezzera. Chad is the Assistant Dean of our online programs, and is really, just the force behind our IMC and our DMC programs, and we are so grateful for you, Chad. I also would like to thank the entire online programs team. I think you're all scattered about. Where are you all sitting? Are you in one spot? Are they hiding? Oh, there they are. Okay, so I'm going to call your names. Stand up. Rick, Amber, Emily, Jordan, Jessica, and Andy, are you all here? So thank you for everything you've done. And I also want to thank the college's communications team who've been very helpful with this event. Erica and Allie, are you here? Erica's here. Yes, hello. Thank you. There's a lot of work that goes into this conference, as you might imagine. And then I want to thank our faculty, so the College of Media faculty and the IMC, DMC instructors who teach in this program, who mentor and guide our students, and who are extremely, extremely dedicated, and many of them have been with us for many years. So would we please have the faculty stand up so we can acknowledge you? And again, I want to thank you for making our IMC and our DMC programs so successful and making it still the gold standard of online marketing communications programs. So now the main event. As all of you know, having a successful communication strategy is vitally important to the success of any organization. It also helps you develop rich and rewarding experiences in your own life, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. A key component to an effective communication strategy is humor. The ability to make others laugh and to laugh at yourself. It makes you authentic, vulnerable, and real. And it keeps your staff and the people that you work with laughing all the time. And I certainly keep my colleagues amused, as they can attest to. Tonight's speaker, Karith Foster, happens to be a very funny person, but she also uses humor as a strategy to get people to talk about and to face difficult things. She's had a fascinating and I would say varied professional life. Has traveled on many paths and had lived different lives. After graduating college in Missouri and attending Oxford University, Foster worked in broadcast television, then in corporate HR, and then in stand-up comedy, and now in, I would say, inspirational engagement. How's that? You like that? She has performed at some of the top comedy clubs in the country, and she was named one of the top 10 comics to watch by The Hollywood Reporter and Backstage magazine. She also had a short-lived but memorable career as on-air sidekick to radio shock jock Don Imus. And she talks a lot about that experience in her TEDx talk, The Art of Defying Stereotypes. And if you haven't seen it, I would encourage all of you to watch it. It's really, it's hilarious, but it's also poignant and inspiring. She has appeared on a number of TV shows, including Comedy Central's Premium Blend, NBC's Today, and Last Comic Standing, and VH1's Best Week Ever, and the Black to the Future miniseries. I like that. She's also been seen on various programs from BET, Bravo, the Travel Channel, and the Fine Living Network. She is also, as I alluded to, a motivational speaker, writer, and entrepreneur. She hosted her own internet talk show, Karith Foster, America's Girlfriend, on Showvio.com. She's the author of Laugh Your Way to Happiness, 101 Ways to Have a Great Laugh, and the creator of Laughter Boot Camp, a workshop designed to teach people how to use humor to improve and enhance their lives. So she's a stand-up comic. She really knows what she's talking about when it comes to laughing. And making people laugh. So I mentioned she's really funny. She's also very real, and she's very true to herself, no matter what the situation. So I'm very happy to have her here tonight. Let's give a warm West Virginia University welcome to Ms. Karith Foster.
Oh my goodness, hello, how are y'all doing? Good. I am so honored to be here. I may even take this off and walk around a little bit. What a treat. What an absolute treat. And I've had nothing but a wonderful time engaging with all of you. And I know the anticipation for this evening is high, so I intend to meet those standards and hopefully exceed them, because you all are certainly worthy and deserving of that. So why am I here? Well, I'm here doing the work that I do for the nonprofit I started. The F and the R, the Foster Russell Family Foundation, is the name that we came up with for the programming that I take to colleges and universities to inspire free speech, inclusion, and social change. Because we really need that in this country more than anything. And as communicators, you all know how important it is to have the ability to have conversations, also to have diversity, true diversity in our realm of thinking, and of course to be people who are here to make a difference in the world. So that really should be my third ultrasound up there, that little FR, but it's pretty close enough. I'm here to talk about fun stuff, diversity. Right? How many people get excited when they hear they're going to have a diversity and inclusion training? Okay. About 1/8, 10th, 12th of the room. That's okay. I'm okay with that. And you know why? Because I kind of am like the rest of the people who didn't really raise their hand but thought maybe they should because it would look good. Here's my issue with diversity. While I think most people who are in it are very well intentioned, I think unfortunately it has been hijacked, especially the word. Because what's the prefix? Divide, right? And that's what it's been doing. And I think that when you focus on, look at how diverse we are, we're so diverse, that's what you get. You get a lot of people thinking we're so diverse we can't possibly work together. Because what do we have in common? Well, it's also a very broad topic, right? I mean, if you're really going to talk about diversity, you got to cover everything in that circle, right? Where people are from, what languages they speak, their nationalities, their religions, their sexual identifications, their politics, everything, right? It's a lot to cover, and more than just the hour, 90 minutes that you usually get. So I think we should flip the switch. And I think we should talk, instead of diversity, we should talk inversity, right? It still means we're going to acknowledge and respect one another's differences, but why don't, instead of focusing on how different we all are, let's focus on what we have in common, right? Let's focus on being inclusive. And let's also focus on being introspective, because that's really where it has to start. And being introspective in the sense of understanding your value, your worth, your connection to humanity. Because if you can see that in yourself, you can see it in somebody else. It's like love, right? You can't be in love with somebody else till you love yourself. It's the same thing with understanding and feeling and being worthy. So this is the only really awkward part of the presentation. I'm going to ask you guys to take a moment and in a second close your eyes and just answer yes or no to a few questions I'm going to throw out there. Okay, you ready? You with me? Okay, close your eyes. And this is just a yes or no for you, okay? And you answer, it's like note to self, okay? Have you ever been in your car and a black guy has walked by and you locked your car doors or thought of it? Have you ever thought that all gay men are really good at fashion? Have you ever thought Jewish people are really good with money? Have you ever heard somebody with a real strong Southern accent and thought, oh, poor thing, too bad they're not very bright? Have you ever heard somebody with a British accent and thought, wow, not only are they smart, they are classy? Have you ever seen someone who's overweight and thought, they're just no willpower. They're lazy. Have you ever been cut off in your car and thought, I bet they're Asian or old? Now keep your eyes closed, please. If you answer yes to any of those questions, would you raise your hand? Okay, keep your hands up, please. Hands up if you raise them. Now open your eyes and look around the room. All right, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your honesty, because those were intense questions. Secondly, I want to say congratulations. You're certified human beings. Because guess what? We all do it. We all stereotype. We all have unconscious bias. It's part of just being a human being. And I think there are three main reasons why we do it. The first is that it's human nature. Like I said, and this goes back to when we were cave people, right? And we had to decide if a situation was going to be a threat, right? Is that a saber-toothed tiger coming around, or is this a warring tribe? Now, we still get uncomfortable about things, but instead of a physical threat, it's more, is this going to be an emotional threat? So we have to be on guard. Another reason we stereotype is because we've learned. We've been taught. Sometimes we've been taught by our parents, our grandparents. A lot of times we pick stuff up from the media. We are all very media-savvy people, and we know how powerful it is. But how many people here play video games, right? Who are the bad guys in the video games usually? How many people grew up on Disney movies? I did, right? Who's always the princess, right? What does a princess look like? Those ideas become ingrained in our psyche, and we carry them on through life. And it's not our fault, but it's definitely something to have a consciousness about. And the last reason that we stereotype is because we have something called the ego, right? The id. And the ego, above all things, likes to be right. And if we can be right by putting someone else in a category, then that means we can be right by putting ourselves in a category. And that makes the ego feel good and comfortable and confident. So I'm not here to make anybody feel bad or put anybody on the spot. I want you all to know that this is real stuff. It's something that we all do. And instead of feeling guilty about it, we just need to have a consciousness about it. Because when we are able to catch ourselves in the act of stereotyping or unconscious bias, we open up an entirely new world of opportunities, of relationships, of experiences. So I'm going to tell you all a little bit about me. Actually, I feel like I need to come down. I love being up there, but I'm used to being closer to the people. I'll go up in a second. I don't know if y'all know this about me, but I'm Black. Thank you. I like to share that. No, I do, because a lot of times when I'm doing comedy, especially, I'll get on stage and people stare, like that hair, that behind, but that voice, no, not so much. No, that is not the Black we know. I am not what the media typically portrays as Black. I'm more like Zendaya Black, right? Or Hillary from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air Black. I used to be able to say Huxtable Black, but that doesn't go over so well now. Thank you, Mr. Cosby. That was one of my best jokes, too. I'm so pissed, because I honestly, really, I used to be able to say, I was a Huxtable. Now they say that, people think my dad tried to roof me my Girl Scout troop, which is not a positive thing. Part of why I sound this way as well is because I grew up in a place called Plano. Has anybody heard of Plano, Texas? Okay, a few of you. Plano, if you've never heard of it, never been, is a really lovely, affluent suburb north of Dallas that happens to have the ethnic diversity of Sweden. So it was not very diverse. My proof of how not diverse it was, I starred my senior year of high school in an all-white production of the play A Raisin in the Sun. 2 guesses on who the raisin was. And you would think that would lead for some really negative experiences. More than that, it was more awkward experiences. I don't know if anybody here has ever been the only one in a circumstance. That was kind of my fate, right? I kind of became the honorary Black representative for my melanin deficient friends. Thank you, smart people. And so they would gather around me for certain occasions because they thought I knew and could do all things Black, right? Like dance. Okay, y'all can't tell by looking at me, but I'm like a quarter Irish, okay? So I don't know if I've ever really truly broken it down, but I can river dance like nobody's business. But I'll never forget one school dance. They got around me and they did the circle, the circle, right? And then they started the chanting. You know the chanting. Go, Karith, it's your birthday. Go, Karith. I was like, no, it's not. But it is coming up. Thank you for saying something. I lost 18 Black points that day. And trust me, those are way harder to make up than cool points. And because I'd grown up like that, my mother was convinced I was going to marry a white guy and bring home zebra grandbabies. Because apparently my mother and Peter Griffin and Archie Bunker are like best friends. I'm like, okay, first of all, that's technically impossible, right? A, we have yet to see little striped biracial children running around town. Secondly, Black people aren't Black, we're brown, right? And white people aren't white. Well, maybe in Connecticut. But y'all are peach. And as far as I'm concerned, those are complementary colors. Right? So my theory was always this, even if I did marry a white guy, I'm brown, he's peach, our kids will be beige, which though goes with everything. My mother is a trip, and I guess she's also maybe, I don't know, she's just, she's one of my biggest fans and one of the people I love, but I want to prove to you that I was not exaggerating about the circumstances that I grew up in. This is actually a picture from when I was born in Denver, Colorado, and this was my first real class picture. Can y'all spot me? This is Denver. Denver for me was like growing up in Sesame Street. It was such a everybody was everything and nobody knew anything. Then we moved to Texas. Can you spot me now? It's like a 50-50 shot, people. I'm in the front row. Look, it looks just like me. I just have much better hair and bigger boobs. It's me. And then I was in, different school. It's going to get harder. I'm just letting you know. It's like, where's Waldo? Oh, look, I played soccer. And this continued through my entire education career, even through college. And that became my normal. Being the only one became my normal. And everybody in this room has a normal. Whether they came from a really diverse place or they came from a place that wasn't, that was what you knew until you left and spread your wings. And we have to remember that everybody has a normal that they're coming from until that prison gets shaken up or changed, and we have a different perspective and different view. Now, I was saying that I love my mother, and as much as I love her, she also is probably psychic, because I ended up meeting this guy, and then we did this. Yeah, and let me tell you about my husband. He's not just white, he's super white. He's from Australia. He came with a cape and everything. And then we made these people. And I will also tell you something that I didn't know till it happened to me. I did not know this, but apparently when a black American and a white Australian get together and make a baby, one of them comes out Asian. And if that is not proof that we are all genetically connected, I don't know what is. Honestly, this is my child. I had her at home on purpose. So this, no mix up in the hospital. But these are my babies. And they are one of the main reasons why I do this type of work. Because I want them growing up in a world where the first question out of people's mouths isn't, what are you? But rather, who are you? What do you like to do? Let me engage with you on a human level, not a surface level. So I've done a lot of work in my life. Dean Reed was very, very generous in her introduction. I worked in national TV, basically right out of school, because my entire, almost growing up, I just had this feeling that I was supposed to be, my purpose was to be a beacon of light and truth. So I went to school for journalism because I thought that was the route that I was going to be able to fulfill this internal sense. And I got into it, and I realized that, yes, you get to tell a version of the truth, but not necessarily share everything, because there are network executives, and there are sponsors, and there are people who control money and the message, and that wasn't going to be my path after all. But I thought there's still got to be a way for me to make a difference in the world, and I ended up in corporate America. And I worked there for a long time in HR, which was still a great opportunity to be with people and make a change and make a difference. But I knew that there was still something more and bigger that I was supposed to do. And all through this time at The View and through Estee Lauder, I started doing comedy. And that became my passion and my love. And I saw that through the lens of comedy, I could be a world changer. I could use humor as a tool to not just get people to think, but to laugh and to grow. And that's actually the motto of the nonprofit that I started. But you can't just do that at 10 o'clock, or midnight at a comedy club in Kansas City in front of a bunch of drunk people. It's just not, that's not exactly how it's going to work. And so I knew that there was something more I was supposed to do with it. And then something happened in 2008 that got national attention. This guy right here in the cowboy hat, his name is Don Imus. And if you're not familiar with him, you might remember the story from 10 years ago. He got in trouble for calling the Rutgers women's basketball team nappy-headed hoes. I now refer to that as Nappygate. And it was intense. All of it was intense, the whole situation. It was something that probably should have never happened, because he should have never said what he did, even though it was in the vein of humor and comedy, and I get it as a comedian. You say stuff on the fly. The problem was he didn't even know what he was saying. And the worst effect was that it harmed innocent people. It harmed people that were young and not looking to be thrust in the spotlight. And it gave them unwanted attention in a very negative way. That was, it was terrible. And the result was he ended up getting fired from WCBS and MSNBC, but he was given a chance to redeem himself. And that's when I got the phone call. Would you be interested in working with Imus? And I do discuss this further in my TEDx talk. But it was a very hard decision to make. But I said yes for a couple reasons. One is, to me, wondering what if. What if I said yes? What if I did, what if I didn't? Like, to me, that's hell on earth. So I had to know what was going to happen. Also, he said he wanted to have a national dialogue about race. And I knew that if I didn't take this position, there might be someone else who wouldn't be as responsible. And I thought, and I saw this as an opportunity to be the anti-stereotype of what you typically see of black women in the media. And I took that upon myself, and I did that myself, and I own it, and it was my decision. And I'm glad that I did, even though it ended up on a not-so-high note. I'm glad that I did. What did ultimately end up happening was he got comfortable again and wanted me to be the voice that he couldn't be. And when that happened, we cut ties. So I left, I started doing a web show, and then some other things started happening just in the country in general that were pretty awful. In 2010, there was a young man by the name of Tyler Clementi, who was a Rutgers University student who jumped off the George Washington Bridge after being outed by his roommate and some fellow classmates. They caught him in an intimate situation with another young man, and he felt that it was his only recourse. And I remember thinking, nobody should feel that alone for who they were, whether it was their religion that they felt set them apart, or their sexuality, or their ethnicity. Nobody should feel that way. What can I do to help? And that was the inception of this program of Stereotype 101, getting people to recognize that we're really all in this together. And we do have more in common than we don't. And we have moments where we are there as a country, as humanity. Unfortunately, it's usually when there's a crisis, right? Like when 9/11 happened. I was there in New York. It happened on a Tuesday. That Thursday, I was in line with thousands upon thousands of other New Yorkers at the Javits Center to give blood, to volunteer, to see what we could do. And for 2 weeks, there was no race, there was no religion, there was no sexuality, there was no age. There was nothing that separated us from our fellow New Yorkers. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And I think that happens a lot when horrible things happen. Unfortunately, the Vegas shooting, when we had the hurricanes recently in Houston, my children's godparents were rescued by a canoe. Nobody bringing them into their canoe said, "Who did you vote for? Who do you sleep with? Who do you pray to?" All the stuff that we think separates us, it's surface stuff. It's not stuff that really matters when we come down to our humanity. So, like I said, Tyler Clementi was kind of the beginning of a lot of things happening in this country that shook us and divided us. And it's really unfortunate that we feel that we have to pick sides. Black lives matter, blue lives matter, that we have to, we're human beings. We shouldn't have to choose sides. We should be respectful and honor everyone's life. It seems like there's scandal after scandal. When the election happened, I know people who had to cancel their Thanksgivings because they couldn't sit down with someone who voted for Hillary and someone who voted for Trump. I mean, that's blood. And you're going to let surface stuff divide you? Like, that's not okay. But we can get there. We can have a consciousness about it. And I'm not the only one who's trying to make a difference. And you guys are in media and you're in marketing. And why I'm delivering this message is because it's so important, because you are the voices that can carry this message forward. There are people who are trying. Starbucks tried, right? They tried a couple years ago. They did with their Race Together campaign, which was very well intended. It really was. But I'm sorry, if Becky the barista can't spell my name right on my cup, I don't know how she's going to talk to me about 150 years, post-Civil War situations in America. Very, very, very well-intentioned, very poorly executed. This is actually an ad from Europe, so we don't have to claim it. But it says, "Everyone is normal inside." Yeah, oh my God, really? This is an ad now. This is an ad from America, and this one we have to own. I took this in the subway of New York City a couple years ago. It says, "Everybody deserves to be treated equally. It doesn't matter if you are black or yellow or brown or normal." Someone got paid to do that, like a lot of money. This was an ad that was in New York City. So it's like, okay, wait a second. We have to like still raise the bar. We still have to have a consciousness about these things that are going on. And part of why I like to address diversity in this way is because I feel like it has been done poorly. I started that when I started, because it shouldn't be about putting people in categories of, oh, you're a minority, so you're marginalized, right? Nobody needs to be made a victim. Oh, you're a straight white person, well, then you're a villain. You're condemned. That's ridiculous. That's not how you bring people together. Everybody, every single one of us in this room deserves a voice in this conversation about diversity because we are what makes up diversity. You know, everybody wants a diverse portfolio, right? We know how awesome that is. We understand that when we have a diverse coming together of minds, that you have ideas that you might not ever get. So that aspect of diversity is awesome, and that's what we should continue to work toward. Now, this actually is an ad. These people are definitely, they weren't trying to help. You see these two guys on the right? They standing there just, I don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They're just holding their crotches. But they're apparently real estate agents, and the message is that they should be the people you go to for help to represent you, because the woman on the right who has 2 children and clearly a lot going on in her life couldn't possibly do the same quality job that they could. Now, the good news about this ad is that these 2 guys are brothers. Their mother saw this ad and ripped them a new one. So they apologized and no longer ran it. But this is my goal for you, and my challenge to you is I want you to care, okay? And CARE is a really cool acronym for conscious empathy. Not to be confused with sympathy. Sympathy is when you feel bad for someone, right? Empathy is when you can actually feel for them, right? You put themselves in their shoes and you ask 2 questions. What is it like for them? And how would that feel? How would it feel to be somebody like me who is the only one in a certain circumstance? If you've not been there, how would that feel? How would it feel to be an older person who is now in a world of younger people and being ignored or not given an option to share their thoughts and ideas? What is it like to be a white person who never grew up around anybody who wasn't white, and now they have questions but are scared to ask because they don't want to come off as racist or seem like they're trying to, do microaggressions? We have to think about what it's like for everybody else outside of our sphere. And that's empathy on steroids. That's conscious empathy. After that comes active listening. So often when we have conversations with people, we're not even looking them in the eye. We're on our phone. We're doing other things. Or we're hearing what they're saying, but we're just waiting for our turn to jump in with what we want to say, right? Because we have a rebuttal. So we're not having even real conversations anymore. Do y'all know that the same letters that make up the word listen are in silent? Isn't that beautiful? And so we need to practice that a little bit, and we have to listen to hear. Because sometimes what we hear or what we think we hear isn't what the other person was saying, which is why we have to engage and ask questions and have a true dialogue. And that, of course, leads into, well, there's me. I just wanted proof. He says I don't listen to him. I swear I do. I captured it. I got it on photographic evidence. But it's why we have to react responsibly. So a lot of times people will say things that sometimes it's off the cuff, sometimes it's not. But if we want to have civil discourse, if we want to have constructive dialogue, then we can't necessarily fly off the handle when someone says something we don't like. We need to investigate further. We need to know what's at the root of it. I call it the 5 C's. Oh, wait, actually. So have anybody here ever received a backhanded compliment? A lot of people in here. Would anybody share? Yes? You're pretty for a dark-skinned person. Ooh, I love that one. That's a good one. Yes?
It's really hip now to be curvy.
Oh, it's hip now to be curvy. So you got some curves, because if you were just straight thin, you'd really be beautiful, but you're good now. You're good with what you got. Awesome. Anybody else? I saw some hands up. Come on. Really? I'm very articulate. Because clearly someone who's a person of color shouldn't be this articulate. I actually one of my best friends is like blonde, blue-eyed, like, you're really smart for a blonde. Really? Right, actually, I have another friend who's gay, and he was told how masculine he was for a gay guy. So it happens a lot. And I don't want to believe that every person who says a backhanded compliment is that completely out of it. But sometimes people, they think that they're giving you a compliment and they don't know. But to attack somebody who does that, I think is the wrong way to go about it. I think one of the best ways to handle it is to say, really? What makes you say that? Where did that come from? Give them the opportunity to have an education and an awareness so they don't continue that ignorance, right? I call it the 5 C's, why people say crazy stuff, right? Sometimes it's couth or class. They just don't have any, right? We see that in a lot of tweets these days. Some people are curious. They say things because they don't know any better. Some people are clueless. Right, I can count myself in that category. I have a couple great stories, but one of our dear family friends who grew up in Alaska, sweetest lady. We've been going to church with her for forever. She has this cute little, blonde bob, and she was telling us about some neighbors who moved into her like area. And she's like, they are the nicest Oriental people you would ever meet. And I gasped. I did that. I was like, oh, God. Jeannie, just so you know, people prefer to be called Asian. Things like rugs and items Oriental. But I didn't want to, jump down her throat because she is truly one of the sweetest people you ever meet. She just didn't know. So it was my responsibility to get her to realize her error so she didn't say these to these new neighbors and have them think that she's this awful, horrible, racist woman, because she's not. And I think she was grateful that I did it. And I did it in a way that wasn't condescending. I did it in a way that was loving. But I also did it in a way to make her know that what she said was going to be perceived as really inappropriate and even possibly hurtful to other people. Clueless, like I said, I myself have done this. What do you guys call it when you sit down on a floor cross-legged? Indian style. Almost everybody here is Indian style. You know what the new term is? Crisscross applesauce. I did not know that until my children started taking karate. That's what they teach children these days. And you think about it, you're like, oh my God, yeah, Indian style. How completely inappropriate. Right? So there are things that all of us, we don't know. So we can't get mad at other people who are maybe a generation older. If they didn't come up with it, they don't know. We just have to be kind and loving and share the new information, okay? And some people say stuff because they're careless, they aren't paying attention, they're not thinking. That's what Imus did. He didn't even know what he was saying. And then some people say stuff because they're callous. Let's just face it, there are assholes that are out there in the world. They exist. And it's up to us to decide whether or not we are going to give our time and energy to them. I personally believe every heart and mind can be changed, but you have to decide for you personally if you're going to expend that time and energy. And that's a personal thing. Now, back to the responsible reactions. This woman is like one of my heroes. Her name is Melody Hobson, and she's a financial wizard, genius. She has her own firm, and she's super duper successful and probably one of the wealthiest black women in America after Oprah. She's also married to this guy. She doubled her wealth. Do you know who this is? Star Wars? Yeah, so they're married, and now nobody has to worry about paying any bills. But she also has her hand in politics, and she is very good friends with this guy, who's now a senator. He was a former mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Cory Booker, and while he was running for office, or looking to run for office, she threw a political fundraiser for him. So they went to this hotel in New Jersey, and they went to the front desk, and they told them what they were there for, and the woman's like, oh, come with me, and she starts taking them through a back hallway, and through some corridors, and then to a room, and they're kind of looking at each other along the way like, this is so odd. Where are we going? And she turns to them and she goes, so, where are your uniforms? Exactly. Now, fortunately, someone else who was looking for them found them right when they were about to answer. And they explained that this was the guest of honor and the woman who was funding the event. And I just wish I could have been a fly on that wall to see the woman's face when she realized the error of her ways. And the thing was, Melody could have lost it. She could have gone off with this woman and would have been entirely in her right to do so. But she let that woman's humiliation serve as the lesson. And I guarantee you that never again will this woman assume anything about anybody who walks through the front doors of that hotel. And it's very often like the story, I don't know if y'all heard the story of, the farmer with the dirt under his hands who goes to the car dealership. Nobody waits on him, nobody does anything because he's just a poor farmer. Finally, somebody comes up to him and says, sir, how can I help you? And he says, I want that car over there. It's the most expensive one on the lot. And he pays for it in cash. We don't know. We don't know about anybody till we get to know them, till we get to engage with them, till we get to interact with them. And it's so easy to have perceptions because of maybe past experiences, but also what we've seen in the media and on TV. We don't know. So take the time to learn about other people. I actually had to have a special situation where I had to react responsibly this past year. This is my husband doing what he loves, motocross. He is all about it. And usually he ends up like he is right there in the middle with some sort of medal or award. Unfortunately, in April of last year, he ended up like this. What we did not know while we were sitting in the ER at the time was that he had 6 broken ribs, a broken collarbone, and his lungs were filling with liquid. I heard the doctors. I came to the hospital to meet him. His friend had brought him in. They were out in the lobby with our children, and I could have stood off to the back just to let the doctors do their thing. And they were asking questions to see if he was concussed, if he had a concussion. What's your name? What year is it? Who's the president? And then they started asking questions that they needed answers to. What's your blood type? Are you allergic to any medications? And I had stayed quiet and out of the way to let them do their job, but when they started asking the questions they needed answers for, I stepped forward and I started answering on his behalf because he wasn't really fully with it. And it was the oddest thing that happened. No one turned around. So I stepped closer and I spoke louder. And again, no one turned around. And I remember looking down at my hands to see if I was really there. It was such a surreal experience. I felt invisible for the first time in my life. And I remember, wondering, am an M. Night Shyamalan movie? That I see dead people. Like, what's going on? It was so stressful, and I was starting to my blood was starting to boil, and I'm like, oh my God, if this is like racism right here, right now, I can't handle it. Not with what's going on, I cannot handle it. And I was about to go off, and someone turned around, and it was a doctor, and he said, he goes, and you are what relationship to the patient? And I said, I'm his wife. And then someone else asked that question, a couple minutes later. It wasn't the question, it was the tone. And again, the blood went to the next level of boiling. And I was truly at my wit's end, and I was about to say something. And then all of a sudden, it was like the energy in the room shifted and changed. And they brought me over, they started speaking to me, they started including me in the conversation, they started showing me the x-rays that had come back. One guy went out and bought me a cup of coffee, and I realized there was a shift in the prism of what their normal was. My husband and I weren't normal for them. We were not the couple they expected. And I remember thinking, this must be what same-sex couples go through. This must be what couples or people who are adopted into a family that they don't necessarily physically look like, this must be what they go through. And as horrible as it was to experience that, I was glad I did because I also got to gain another perspective for other people. But I also realized that what I was about to deem a racist encounter really wasn't. It was an encounter of perspectives that needed shifting. And somehow they did. And I was able to speak with the hospital administration afterwards, and I told them what happened. And I said, there are situations where other people may not be as cool as I was, because I was about to become the angry black woman, and I might have gotten kicked out. And that wouldn't have done any good for my husband or for me. So the fact that I kept my cool was a good thing. But I was being pushed to my limits. I said, so you guys need to have an awareness that not all families are going to come in looking like you expect. Your doctors need to know this. And everybody was cool with me. They were good, like I said. I mean, if it was a racist situation, like nobody would have gone out and bought me a cup of coffee and not let me pay for it. Like that wasn't the reality. But the reality was we took people out of what their realm of normal was. So that's another thing to have a consciousness about. And environmental awareness, which is basically what I was just talking about, being aware of who we are surrounding ourselves with purposefully, who are we avoiding purposefully. Many of you are well into adulthood and you're doing your own thing. You're not necessarily on a college campus where you're forced to be with a certain group of people. Now you have the choice. And you get to choose who your friends are and where you hang out and what you do and who you associate with. And I hope that you make the choice to go out of your comfort zone sometimes to meet and interact with other people, because it could be an amazing blessing. Now, none of this is easy. Everything that I put forward is challenging. Having conscious empathy, actively listening, responsibly reacting, and being, having an awareness about your environment. I like to think of it as, I think the best representation of the work that I was talking about, physical representation, is this dress. Y'all remember this dress? Right? It was all over. Who's never seen this? Has anybody here not seen this? Okay. This is one dress, just so you know. But some people see it as white and gold when they look at it, and some people see it as black and blue. It is white and gold. It is white and gold. But here's the thing. This dress caused fights over the internet like nobody's business. It caused fights in person. Because you'd be standing next to somebody who's like, yeah, that dress is black and blue. You're like, no, it's white and gold. But why was it? I swear, friendships were over. A couple divorces happened. Why do you think it was such a big deal, this dress? Like, why did it cause such a kerfuffle? Ego? People's perception, right? Everybody who saw it thought they were right. Because they were, and they were looking at something. What they saw with their own two eyes was how could you tell me? I'm looking at it. How can you tell me this isn't what I'm seeing? And that's something that we also need to remember. We can be looking at the same thing, the same situation, but because we're coming from a different perspective, we're going to see it differently. Now, there is a scientific reason why people saw this dress differently. It has to do with how our eyes take in light, and not everybody's eyes operate the same way. So it's, same with that. I just think it's such a beautiful life lesson to remember when we're in a discussion with someone about different things. We have to remember they may have their own perspective because they're coming from a completely different outlook and vision. Now, this is the only thing where there's truly a right or wrong. Under people, where are my under people? God love you. I don't know how you dress yourselves in the morning. We can still be friends. I'm just saying I will go to your house and change it. So here's the thing, y'all. When you care, this is what you get. You get communication, you get acceptance, you get respect, and you get engagement. And that is what we need, not just professionally, but personally and as a society. So I challenge you to all of those things. Here's the thing, I also am asking you to take these home with you. And if you know organizations or schools or any corporation that could use having something to open the dialogue, having something to create this conversation, this new way of looking at diversity or inversity, as I call it, please tell them about me, tell them about this, because I want this to go nationwide. We are so divided right now. We are so polarized. We need to start talking to each other and not be afraid to do it, because we have more in common than we don't. And it's really fear that's keeping us back. And most of the stuff we're afraid of never even comes to fruition. It's just getting that first step, getting that first conversation going, being, not on the offense or the defense, but in a neutral space and place to share. So I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you laughing. I appreciate you just being present. And I would love to open up the floor for questions if you have any. Yes. Did you hear this? Abercrombie and Fitch had a campaign that said, they had a T-shirt years ago that said, West Virginia, 1 million people, 15 last names. The question was, how do we change the perception of West Virginia as this essentially backwards, hillbilly, poor place that is the butt of many jokes for people in the country? And honestly, what you're doing right now, using the words that you use when you speak to other people, when you're a representative, this is what you represent, because you're none of those things, right? So you are your own best message, and you take that with you wherever you go. And what you project is what people will, you will change people's minds. You know, so often, like I said, I was talking to people earlier about being pegged, you know, in the entertainment industry. And I didn't fit into the pigeonhole. I didn't fit the stereotype. I would go out for auditions, right, for African American parts. And voiceovers, especially, was the hardest, because I'd get up there with this voice. And because we're in the age of being politically correct, they would never say, you know, Karith, can you sound blacker? Instead, I'd get, can you jazz it up a little? And my answer was always, so you want me to scat? But I had to, you know, it wasn't easy. I'm not going to lie. It hurt because there were jobs I wanted. I needed to pay bills. I needed to get stuff done. I wanted to advance my career. And because I didn't fit someone else's ideal, I didn't get those jobs. But you know what jobs I got? I got the jobs that were perfect for me. And I got the jobs that I created for myself. And that's what you have to do. That's how you change people's perceptions, by being the best you can be. And I don't mean to sound like this, like, you know, rah-rah cheerleader, but I truly, I can't think of better advice than for you to be the representative, and for you to, everybody in this room dictates how other people treat them by how you treat yourself. So that's why it really has to start with you. And if you don't believe any of those things you were talking about, all the negative things, then you don't own those things. You own who you are, and that will resonate, and other people will see that. And they'll be like, oh, wow, I've never met anybody from West Virginia. I had this idea of blah, blah, blah. And you can be the counter to that. You have other questions? Comments? Yes, ma'am. That was a great question. I don't know if you heard it. She asked how I corrected my friend who uses the term Oriental versus Asian. And like I said, you know, this is somebody who was dear to me. I mean, she threw me a tea when I graduated from high school. Like, this is a family friend who just didn't know any better. And so I mean, I was genuine with her. I was authentic. I didn't candy coat it, but I said, listen, Jeannie, just so you know, people who are Asian prefer the term Asian. Oriental actually refers to items and you know, like rugs or vases. I said, and you're such a nice person. I would hate for you to be misperceived as somebody who is anything but that. And she was grateful. She was grateful. Because I don't think anybody in her family would have, you know, and maybe because they didn't know her, it just was so acceptable that, you know, doesn't bother me. I'm not Asian. So, and that's what we have to do. We have to stand up for other people in situations. I'm not Asian, obviously. I make an Asian baby, but I'm not Asian. But it's still my responsibility to, you know, look out for other people. I'm not gay, but it's still my responsibility to be a voice for people who are. Absolutely. Anybody else? Yes.
I have to be here, really?
Right. And that's the story you share. I don't know. Tell me your name. I'm sorry. Stephanie was talking about her family is basically like a Benetton ad, right? Like you have literally everything in your family. I love it. And that's kind of my family too at this point. But she has an aunt who's Filipino who refers to herself as Oriental. And listen, if that's her thing, if that's her bag, and she's comfortable with it, obviously, you know, I mean, you can say, hey, listen, just so you know, I don't know if you're in the know now. She's an older woman. And you just have to have the consciousness yourself because you know. And the fact that it does, give you agita when she does it, I think you'll be on your ball about not, slipping.
Kind of waiting for the opening.
Right.
Not being in their shoes. Like,
Sure.
prepared for a talk.
Sure. I don't know if everybody heard what was being said. Essentially, you're in a job where one of the people in charge referred to international students as they on a consistent basis, and you raised the issue that you thought it was inappropriate, it wasn't comfortable. The maintenance people did it as well. You took it because what your pleas were basically ignored. You took it to corporate, right? And you thought that however you presented it, it wasn't strong enough because they didn't do anything either. They didn't do anything either. And so what's the next step? And, honestly, I feel like you did everything that you could in that regard, unless, you're going around getting petitions and I think you have to decide how much energy you're going to give something. And I think I personally don't see it as a bad thing when someone would say that to you, that you just correct them and say, I'd prefer it if you said this. And just be consistent, because that's really all you can do. And they may be doing it on purpose just to tick you off because they don't feel like what you're saying is valid. And they're not going to change their ways because, you're uncomfortable. And that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate because there is a lesson there for them. And not, like I said, not everybody is going to get it. Not everybody's going to get it right away. But being persistent in the fact that you went as far as you did, I think that's very admirable. Because some people will just not say anything. So thank you for that. Yes?
People being unaware of, how certain words will affect other people. So how can you encourage people?
Getting the conversation going. How do you encourage people to ask the uncomfortable questions? Quite honestly, I think the only way to go about any of this is to be authentic. To say, listen, I don't know about this. Please tell me. I'm coming from a place where I'm seeking knowledge. You're not always going to phrase it like that, but I think when you're sincere, people read that versus just a blanket statement about something. It's like you can tell when somebody's smiling on the other end of the phone. You can tell when somebody's sincere when they're asking a question. Not all the time, but that's why you have something to back up. Say, listen, I'm not trying to offend you. I'm asking because I want to know. I don't know, and I need an answer. And that's it. It is very difficult to have uncomfortable conversations. It's difficult for the person initiating it. It's difficult for the person on the other side. But if everybody realizes that discomfort is a temporary state, and we can move past it, the more real and authentic we are, the faster we get to the meat and to an understanding, which we'll never get to if we don't talk to one another, if we don't engage. That's a great question. Yes? I love that. Take the risk. Take the risk to have the conversation. Take the risks to be uncomfortable. Because guess what? Like I said, it's temporary. It is temporary. And the best part about being uncomfortable is that when you come out of that space, it feels so good, right? Think of it as a butterfly coming out of that cocoon, right? Oh my God, how good. It sucks going through that little hole, that little chrysalis, right? All that fluid pushing back in your body. But you know what? If that doesn't happen, that butterfly doesn't get to fly, because going through that hole is what pushes all of the liquid, all the fluid into the wings so that the butterfly is strong enough to go. That's what discomfort is. Giving you your wings so you can be better and stronger. Anything else? Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
What is your perspective on the tweeter-in-chief and the partisanship that has erupted over the last decade or so?
It makes me sad, honestly. It makes me sad. I understand why he got to be president. I understood the frustration of many people across the country of seeing the same type of policy and policymakers in place. I get that 110%. What I don't understand is why, I've encountered people who apparently, like, who know him, are like, he's really a great guy. And I actually said, well, then why does he say those horrible things? I don't understand. Like, it's a disconnect for me. So it's very confusing, because I think there are some good things that he's trying to do, and then there's some horrible things. And it's a very frustrating situation. I mean, I wish I could say, one way or another. I think we just have to not let this very unstable person dictate our dialogue or how we treat one another. We can't fall prey to that. And like I said, I mean, and I say unstable just based on the communication, the way that he communicates. I mean, I feel like I don't even know. Like, is it an act? Is it like a really good act? Is he really completely bat crap crazy? Like, I don't know. But I do know that it's affecting relationships and it's affecting this country, and we can't let it. And I'm one of those people, not to get all conspiracy theory, but I feel like there's more money in division. And the more we're divided, the more we're at each other's throats, the more other people in power get to do what they want, and we're not even paying attention. So we can't fall under that spell.
Thank you.
Yes, Joe? That's a great way to say it. Help me understand. I think that puts it all out there. You're making it personal. You're also saying, I don't know everything. I don't want to assume things. You are my key to knowledge. So help me understand. I think that's a really wonderful way of saying it. Thank you. Somebody else was starting to raise a hand. Did I miss one? Yes, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit more about your foundation and what it does, and if we don't live in Kansas City, I think you said.
No, Plano. Well, I travel all over. It really, my home is where my underwear is, so. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, so fosterrussell.org is the site. This is, like I said, this is my baby. It was just, the inception was this past year that I launched, but I wanted to get this message out to as many people and places as I could. And a lot of colleges will bring in speakers for programming. Some colleges have endowments and they have stipends they can use for speakers. Some schools have nothing. And I didn't want budget to be an issue of getting this message out. Because yes, I do need to make a living, of course, but this is about changing the world. This is about making the world a better place, not just for us and for me and for my children, but for the people who are coming up. And if we don't start doing something now, and I'm not the only one doing this, like I said, there are good people out there doing really great things. This is how I found that I could do my part. And I could combine my passion, which is making people laugh, with my purpose, which is, being that beacon of light and truth. And, yes, I'm a speaker, but I'm a healer. I think that's part of my job, is to help heal and help bring people together and realize that, like I said, we have so much more in common than we don't. We just need that extra push sometimes and that part of the conversation or that epiphany and mind shift to realize that. So thank you. Yeah, and I mean, all of my information is here. Please reach out. I have an amazing support team. And like I said, what I need is to get to as many places as possible just to get this message out. Is that it? All right, were there any closing remarks all right, Chad. Yay, Chad. Thank you all. Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Karith. It's an important message for us. It's an important time, and I really, really appreciate Karith for taking time out of her schedule to come join us. So could you please give her another hand? So this is my least favorite moment, right? When I have to get up and say something, because this isn't my natural environment. There's usually a couple of monitors, and I'm in a dark room somewhere. So that's the benefit, I guess, of running an online program. But I want to just say a couple of things. I realize that I'm keeping you all, every person in this room, from 3 places. They all start with B. Bed, my poor sleep-deprived team, who I've been watching. You guys are great, and please give them a hand. They've been wonderful. The second place is the bar. For many of you who are students, I know what you do. So please don't be like the very first Integrate where you guys didn't show up the whole next day. That'd be appreciative. And then the third is the bathroom, and I know many of you want to get there quickly, so I'll keep it short. But I wanted to say a couple of things. Integrate is important. It's important to our program, it's important to me, and it's important to the faculty and to the entire culture that we've created here at West Virginia University for our IMC program. I was thinking that this is actually the 15th consecutive year that we've done an event in the summer. Who knew, right? Who's been to all 15? Yeah, oh, my poor wife. But I learned something every Integrate, and it's insightful. It's insight into our students, into our faculty, into our world, and I want to share one of the things that I've learned with you all, and I actually like to just sort of see if you all can guess. At the end of one of the sessions today, a student gave a comment about the value of the session, and she explained to me just how great the session was. How did she define it? Anyone? She didn't check her phone once. I love that. For all the educators in the room, it is absolutely a different world than it was a few years ago, and we have to be evolving and changing and meeting our students where they are and engaging with them in ways that matter to them. And I think that Integrate is one of the most valuable moments in this program's year because it gives us that ability to have that insight. So I want to encourage you all to please come back, tell your friends, faculty, we always want you here, but this is important for us, and it's important, I think, for our college. So I want to thank you all. The dean has done an amazing job thanking us and thanking me, and I don't deserve most of the praise. My team is amazing. But I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy lives to come and join us. So tomorrow, we start again at 8:30. I'm sorry about that. But we have some great speakers tomorrow. Please come and attend the sessions in the morning, and please have a safe and wonderful night. But thank you all for coming.